is the oldest of the Gospels. It is by consensus considered to be the first Gospel written, and it was written in a totally different form. Unlike the prophets of the Hebrew Scriptures, it was not a collection of oracles and sayings. Unlike the letters of Paul, which predate the Gospels, it was not a letter to a church located in a specific city. But the Gospels, for the first time, were a narrative telling of the story of this man, Jesus. A man who, by the time the Gospel was written, all of those who were alive when Jesus was, had been put to death or died a natural death. Almost all of the writers of the gospel were second or third generation Christian people. People who believed in the story that they had been told by parents or grandparents or friends or neighbors who had said, "Come, join us." We're telling these stories because this man who lived 50, 60 years ago, there was something special about him. So, the author of the gospel, that is called the Gospel of Mark, is the first who sat down and wrote these stories and connected the tissue of the various narratives that were told. So as we go through Lent now, we begin to hear these stories. And I think in the hearing, sometimes there is something that can come up for us, that if we simply read little snippets each week, which is what the lectionary ordinarily gives us, just little pieces, we sometimes miss the context. In the chapters that we heard this morning, Jesus is introduced to us. It's interesting to observe that in those 3 chapters, who is it that gets that he is someone special? Is it the 12 who are gathered around him? Or is it the people? Is it the humans, or is it the demons who recognize that this is the Son of God? The interesting thing about this Gospel of Mark is those who the story, the narrative tells us, are the closest to Jesus are the ones who are oblivious. His family, his mother, his brothers and sisters have no clue, at least in the Gospel of Mark. They don't get what he's here for. They don't understand what he's here to do, why he feels called, and what he is called to do and to be in this world. But the leper sees him and knows right away, you can heal me. If you want to do it, you can do it. The man with the demon inside of him, the unclean spirit. The unclean spirit knows who Jesus is. And while they don't want to admit it, the scribes and the Pharisees understand this is trouble coming down the horizon. We've got to oppose this guy because he could be dangerous. He's going to upset everything we have been working to set up. All of the 600 and, forgive me, I forget the exact number of laws in Torah that make up Midrash and all of the tradition, all of them have been set up and they're here for a purpose. And as Pharisees, they were there to live life zealously. And to live life zealously means you will keep every jot and tittle of the law, as it says in the King James Version. Jesus comes and he kind of blows that apart. And he's asking people to think differently, to go beyond that. So as we go into the next several weeks, I want you to listen to the stories. Where do you hear God speaking to you in this reading of Mark? Where do you hear God speaking to the church? And it can be the little C church, the Rutherford Congregational Church, or the big C church, the worldwide collection of those who profess to believe in Jesus. And finally, and not least of all, what do we hear the gospel telling us about how to live our lives each day? How are we to ask our leaders to lead us? What does it truly mean for us to live out faith if we are followers of Jesus? I would be remiss if I did not mention the horrific events of this past week. Yet again, 17 young people and teachers were slaughtered. Yet again, we weep as a nation. We lower our flags. We send each other thoughts and prayers. But how real are those thoughts and prayers? There was a wonderful quote I found by Miroslav Volf, who was a theologian at Yale University. And I'm going from memory, so if I get the quote wrong, you can check the church's Facebook page because I posted it there. But it was to the effect that our prayers are the height of hypocrisy if we don't really mean to do anything to resolve the problem we are praying about. The students at the high school in Parkland, Florida, put us all to shame by immediately speaking out, by immediately calling our leaders to account. It's our job as adults to make sure that our children can go to school without fear, without having to do drills to practice what happens if a shooter walks in the door. It should be not something that we have to worry about when we gather in God's house of prayer on Sunday morning. Would there be an active shooter in our place of worship? Would the schools that our children or grandchildren go to, are we willing to sacrifice our children on the altar of the Second Amendment? Is that really what our founding fathers put that there for? We haven't yet gotten to this part of the gospel. But we all know well Jesus' greatest commandment is to love God above all and to love our neighbors as ourselves. And what part of allowing semi-automatic or automatic weapons in the civilian population, what part of that is walking the way of Jesus? How do we justify that? We can end gun violence, but we we have to want to end it. And we have to work together to hold our leaders accountable. If they do nothing, our prayers mean something. They should mean something. But they don't mean anything if we don't go out and vote in November to ensure that these people are not returned to office. If they will not defend us, if they will not ensure that our children are safe, there's no need for firearms in a school. There's no need for firearms in a house of worship. There's no need for us to carry firearms when we go to ShopRite, or to Walgreens, or to CVS, or to Duane Reade, or to Sonoma Bistro. It's unnecessary. If you want to hunt, hunt. Eat what you kill. Use what you kill, just like the Native Americans did. But otherwise, these other weapons were only designed and meant to kill people. And there is this commandment that says, "Thou shalt not kill." God help us. But God give us the strength and the courage to stand up and say, enough. We believe in Jesus the Christ, and we want to take care of our neighbors. And it's time